Hey Squeeze students, welcome to Algebra 2. We're going to get started with just one unit before you get switched over to Mr. Moore's class second semester. And we're going to start by talking about key features of functions. So in this unit, it's going to seem a little bit all over the place, but we're just going to be talking about some of the basic things that you'll need for algebra going forward. So the first skill, we're going to call it 1.1a. It is talking about sets in interval notation. It's actually a little bit more than that, but the main thing we really want to focus on is this thing called interval notation. Okay, so as we go through our examples here, all of these are going to look the same. We're going to write the same information 4 different ways. So we're going to see it in words, with a diagram, in interval notation, and then in what's called set notation. So the first example, I'm giving you just some words to describe a set of numbers. And that set of numbers is all real numbers greater than -2 and less than 3. So basically it's the numbers between -2 and 3. But then there's a couple little things that come up here that we need to be careful with. So I'll talk about those. So when you're diagramming your information, you always want to put your smaller number on the left, your bigger number on the right. So in this case, -2 and +3. Sometimes I'll put a 0 on the diagram as well. You don't have to, but sometimes it's just kind of nice to add that there. So I'll add it in this case. Now, we have all of our numbers need to be greater than -2, but it does not say to include -2. So when that's the case, if it's strictly greater than, not equal to, we're going to use an open dot. So we need an open dot at 2, and then we're thinking that we want things bigger than -2. So I'm going to start a line to the right. And then we also have less than 3. So I'm going to go to the 3, and again, we're not including 3. We have all of our numbers less than 3. Okay, so anything in between -2 and +3 would work for this set of numbers. 0, 1, 2, 2.5, 2.9999999. Okay, but not 3, not anything greater than 3. Not -2, not anything less than -2. Okay, next one is interval notation. This is the one that we're really going to focus on, what you're going to use the most in your algebra and in your pre-calc going forward. When you use interval notation, you're going to write down your smallest number and your biggest number, and you're going to put a comma between them. Okay, now anytime you have an open dot, you're going to use a regular parenthesis. Okay, if you have an open dot on the right, another open parenthesis, just regular parentheses. If it's a closed dot, you're going to use a bracket. Okay, and then anytime you have infinity or negative infinity, those are always going to be regular parentheses. So we'll see a bunch of examples as we go along here. So because we have open dots on both sides, we're going to use parentheses on both sides. Okay, now don't get confused. Like, this is not an ordered pair. This is not a point on a graph. It's different. We're talking about sets here and ranges of numbers, and it just happens to look like it's an ordered pair, but it's not. Okay, and then last one is set notation. You won't use this one as much, but it may come up, so we're going to talk about it. When you're using set notation, you're going to use this curly little bracket. Do your best with that. And we're talking about x's here. Now, I haven't really talked about that, but in all of these examples, we're talking about like left to right, like we did in the diagram here. This is kind of like an x-axis. So in this case, it's going to be all x's such that, so that vertical line reads such that. That's how you'd say that. So all x's such that x is greater than -2 and x is less than 3. And maybe you've seen that before, like in middle school. Maybe not the whole bracket thing, but maybe you've seen this kind of language right here. So x is between -2 and 3, bigger than -2, yet smaller than 3. All right, we're going to keep moving here. Next one, all real numbers less than or equal to 5. Okay, so when we diagram this one, it's going to be a little bit easier because we just have the one number. So we just need 5. Again, if you want to put 0 on, you can. And we're looking at all numbers less than or equal to 5. So because it says or equal to, that's going to be a closed dot because we can include the 5. So I'm going to put a nice heavy closed dot on 5, and then we want everything less than 5. Okay, for interval notation, this is where we're going to introduce negative infinity, because our possible numbers are anything from 5 all the way to forever in the negative direction. So when we do interval notation, we want negative infinity is our smallest number, 5 is our biggest number. Because it's a closed dot, we're going to use that kind of bracket. And then anytime we have infinity or negative infinity, we're going to use the regular parentheses, because you can't actually touch negative infinity. It's kind of like an open dot down there because we never actually get to it. Okay, so that's how that one looks in interval notation. And then in set notation, it's all x's such that x is less than or equal to 5. And then we close it up. Okay, because of this little line down here, that means or equal to. So less than or equal. Alrighty, I'm gonna keep going so this video doesn't get too long. Next one here, they gave us interval notation. So we're just gonna kind of work backwards and come up with all of the rest of them. So they are saying not touching 0, so that's an open dot, but touching 4, that's a closed dot. So I'm going to diagram it next. So I'm going to go here. We have 4 and 0. Open dot on 0 because of the parenthesis. Closed dot on 4 because of the bracket. And then we're going to connect them. Okay. Words, we'll do words next. For words, that would be all real numbers greater than 0 and less than or equal to, oops, or equal to 4. Okay, writing that is kind of annoying, but that's okay. All right, and then finally set notation. In set notation, we're going to have all x's such that, and then when you have numbers on both sides like that, like you don't have a negative infinity or infinity, I always put the x down first and then set it up like this, and then think a little bit. On the left side, we're not touching, so that's a regular less than sign. On the right side, though, for the 4, we are touching the 4, so I'm going to add a less than or equal to sign. So I'm going to add that extra line there, and then you can just put down your 0 and your 4. And then last one here, we have all x's such that x is greater than 3. So I'm looking at the set notation first. Let's go diagram. Go diagram next. So all we really need on here is a 3. And then since it's just a regular greater than sign, it's not touching. It's not greater than or equal to. So it's an open dot heading to the right forever. So that's infinity. I added that there just because that helps us with interval notation. Now when we hop to interval notation, we have a 3 as our smallest number, infinity as our biggest number, not touching either one. So regular parentheses. And then words, this one will be a little bit easier. It's just going to be all real numbers greater than 3. And then lastly, just a quick little summary here, just so you have all in one place. Where are you including the number? Where are you not including? What does that look like? So when you're talking about dots, open dots and closed dot means includes, open dot means does not include. Okay, when you're in, let's go to set notation next. Okay, if you're including, it's going to be a less than or equal to or a greater than or equal to sign. Does not include, you don't have the lines underneath. In interval notation, we'll go that way next. If we're including brackets, not including regular parentheses, anytime you have infinity or negative infinity, you are not going to include. So I'm just going to kind of add that to the list. And then in words, you're looking for greater than or equal to or less than. Ditto marks. Okay, less than or greater than or equal to. And then for the does not include, that's just your strictly greater than or less than. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. That's the big thing with all of this is just the notation stuff, making sure that you're being careful about, is it including that number or is it not including that number, open dot, close dot, all that good stuff. So you can, at this point, go ahead. There's a practice sheet and then there's a mastery check. So kind of same process as we always do, and then move on to the next one.